Welcome to the AR-15 podcast. This show is for you if you just bought your first rifle or you've been building them for years. There's something we can all do to take our black rifles to the next level. My name is Nick Dooley, and I am joined tonight by Joe, our Director of Propaganda.
Howdy, everybody.
And we also have our very special guest, ladies and gentlemen, Adam Kraut.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I know that you are incredibly busy because
sometimes
printers go burr and things of that nature. And then you've been bouncing around the country. I know we just saw you in, I'm not going to say beautiful Cleveland. We saw you in Cleveland at GunCon.
Beautiful is not a word it's not an adjective I would choose for the parts I saw.
Ohio, the whole state of Ohio, maybe.
Well, parts that were pretty.
I mean, they're pretty flat, but they're pretty.
Yeah, like it's like looking at an ocean that was once on fire. But that's enough of picking on Ohio. No, so it was good to see you there, and I know you've been making the rounds around doing all of the things, but. So before we get too far into the show, Joe, did you do anything fun with the shooting world this year or this week? Whatever.
Depends on if you consider cleaning a gun fun. No, I went out to the range last night to get prepped for the Governor's Cup in Casper, Wyoming this weekend. So I did some transition drills. Found out that I stink shooting to my left for some reason last night. I was way out of the A zone. Whether it was starting left, moving right, or starting right, moving to the left, they were all horrible. So I spent a couple mags just working that direction. And I have a tendency right now, I think it's just forgetting my offset to be shooting low. So I'm hitting the bottom of the A zone on most of my hits. But then I came home and I ran the bolt over to you and then came home and cleaned that thing up because the last time I was out to the range, I had some bolt holdback issues, and I think it's just getting carboned up with all the shooting I've been doing on it this summer. So hopefully everything's good and ready to run this weekend. I think there's 13 stages and 10 different stops. I think they have it. So I shoot Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon, so it's gonna be a long drive back Sunday night. But the nice thing about that match is they don't do awards; they mail them out. They don't do tear down by the competitors. It's all taken care of by them. I think they actually have a course or something going on, a class going on like that Monday, so I think they'll leave some of it up for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there. My wife's going with me, so it's going to be an interesting trip. But
well, that'll be fun.
Yeah, and for those wondering, because I think they want this. We've had enough people that want this segment. So tonight's drink of choice is the Wyoming whiskey, the 10-year anniversary bottle that they had from 2022 that I'm still working through. It's a delicious bottle. I've been savoring it. It's getting empty. Hopefully I can find some on a shelf out there yet.
Yeah, I don't have my bottle in here, but tonight I am doing the Horse Soldier South Dakota Select Barrel and enjoying a cup of that. And that is also a delightful bourbon. Nice high proof whiskey. So Adam, did you do anything fun in the last couple of weeks, or just travel?
No, I mean, I actually got out to the range last night too, but because I had another podcast, I couldn't stay. So gun club near me hosts night shoots, but I'm friends with some of the board members. So whenever he's up this way, he invites me out. I took one of my AR-15s and an SBR that used to have an aim point on it that I stripped off it a long time ago that I threw a Razor 1-10 on that I zeroed, and then went to zero acro on my 19 that just came back, and got there and thought I didn't have the tool. And I always forget on the acros, it's a Torx adjustment, not the 2 dots that you find on like the T series ones. So I pull out the tool. I try to put it in the dots. It's too small. I don't have the tool. So I try to finagle it one or two other ways, and then I just gave up because I had to get back. And I briefly searched my house. I found 2 other aim point tools, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't understand how I have 3 acros and no adjustment tools. And it turns out it was sitting in my hand the whole time. So lesson learned for that. Other than that, I don't know. I've got got a thermal I gotta play with to get zeroed on a rifle, and I just had a PVS 27 show up, so I'm excited to tinker with that too at night sometime here soon. And I didn't know we were drinking on the show because I would have grabbed my bottle of choice. It's over in the other room. I'll just tell you about it because selfishly, it does benefit the Second Amendment Foundation as well. But there is a brand, 2A Bourbon, and the bourbon is actually pretty darn good. I do drink it. I'm not just trying to pitch it. It comes in a neat little hard case and all that. But I was actually, when I was given a bottle, I was kind of, wondering how good it would be, and I was very surprised. So I've actually bought 1 or 2 bottles as gifts for people because I thought it was good. So
where can we find that?
2abourbon.com, I think.
Yeah, right here I have it up on screen, and we'll
so
go through.
Unfortunately, we are a very gun-friendly state in this here, but we're not a very ship alcohol in friendly state.
Yeah.
So I got to bootleg everything through my brother in North Dakota.
Yeah, Pennsylvania is the liquor stores are all owned by the state here.
Yeah, we'll find a way.
Yeah,
we'll get it. Don't worry about that. Oh, I like
just send it to a friend and have them rebox it and ship it on to you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know some people, but no, that looks awesome, and yeah, I'll have to get my hands on that.
Yeah. So you guys get? Were you saying you guys get a portion of it?
Yeah, so the owner of it donates to some portion of the proceeds to SAF and also Folds of Honor, and occasionally, some other things. But those are the 2 like mainstays of where the donations go.
That is awesome.
Yep, gonna have to try to find some of that.
Yeah. Well, if you have trouble, let me know. We'll get you squared away.
Yeah, I will be working on that later tonight because if I go through now, I'm like, oh, I bet I can find it right now. And then I'm going to be doing that instead of paying attention to the show. So we're going to put a pin in that. But no, so I actually didn't do a lot of fun gun stuff for once. I worked on Joe's Bolt. I did a bunch of transfers and paperwork for people who wanted to get their NFA items in. So I, was doing a bunch of Form 4s because guys are going, no, I'm just going to get it in before there's a giant mass of people and the system screws up, and which is going to happen. But
oh yeah.
So just doing some of that normal housekeeping, not super fun stuff. I am starting to put some stuff in the works for a exciting thing that might happen next week or next weekend with a night shoot, and getting that kind of running to do some training and maybe a little teaching to do some night shoot stuff. So that is that's all I've really had going on. So I'm just going back and checking all my night vision gear and making sure, oh yeah, everything's got proper batteries and I have all the stuff. And
I'm still mad I can't make that work or make it work life friendly.
Yeah. That seems to be the way everything goes. It's like, hey, this is really fun. Yeah, but I have like responsibilities.
Usually
like that.
No, I gotta go to drill. A 48, what is it? Like 50 days a year that I have to be there. There's always something going on.
Yeah. No. So Adam, before we dive too much into Second Amendment Foundation, the amazing work those guys are doing, let's hear a little bit about you. Now, I know that you've been in the firearm space for a long time. I know that we visited at GunCon, and I said that I have a video you did like 10 years ago that I talked with John before about. It was like, hey, we live around a bunch of reservations, and when I teach concealed carry classes, I use that video as a short, succinct, hey, this is things you have to consider when going on reservations. And just because I'm like, this gives me like 1 5-minute break through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But so you've been around for a while. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
Well, so I grew up in a house that didn't have guns. At some point my parents, I conned them into a BB gun, and I think, because I just definitely had friends who had BB guns, and actually, come to think of it, I only knew one kid growing up that had guns in his house. No one else I hung out with or played with did. And they were they were hunters. It wasn't anything like super stuff that I'm into today. Um, and so I, did the stupid, irresponsible stuff with a BB gun for a while, and then I don't know where I still have it, but I don't know where it got off to for quite some time. And it wasn't until I was down at summer camp for scouts that I actually shot a real gun for the first time. So it was a Marlin bolt action with peep sights, 22, and I just remember the stupid grin that was on my face after doing that. So went and would buy tickets in the evenings to go shoot more, so I could get more time on the range. And then the following year, I went and bought tickets to shoot shotgun. And I still distinctly remember Bill Hess, who was running the range, and I think he was on the commission or something. He was somebody important in the scout council. But I remember getting up there and being so terrified of the kick as like a 12 or 13-year-old and having no context for anything. Yelled pull, and immediately pulled the trigger. And of course I didn't hit the clay, but he kind of laughed and he said, "You got to aim." And so that was my like real second experience, and that solidified it for me. And then I started breaking clays, and it just every time I was down at camp, I'd go shooting. And so I turned 18, bought a shotgun, didn't tell my parents about it. My brother snitched on me. They told me to get rid of it. Didn't happen. And I turned 21 and bought a handgun and got a carry permit. And that really upset my parents. They had this preconceived notion that I was somehow going to end up in a gunfight and die very quickly, which has not happened yet, fortunately. And I'd like that to remain the case for the remainder of my life, just so there's no questions about that.
If you end up in a gunfight, you better hope you have a gun.
Right. Yes.
It's like rule number 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then bring friends with guns.
Yeah.
So I had gotten into guns in that time, built an AR-15 shortly thereafter, and SBR'd it pretty quickly back when NFA stuff was still kind of an enigma to most people. And, perused AR-15.com for all the time. Still very active on that forum too, for that matter. But over time, my gun collection just grew. The NFA stuff certainly interested me. I was in my mid-20s, and my dad, out of the blue, asked me to take him shooting. So that same stupid grin that was on my face when I was down at scout camp was now on his. And he went from being very anti-gun to, over a course of a decade or so, going from handguns are fine, but what do you need an AR-15 for, or magazines, like that, to I think everybody should have these. So it was interesting to watch in my life that experience of somebody who was very anti-gun go from that to very pro-gun, and that people should have these things. Finished college, I take a year off. I'm working at a landscape company. I'm basically a glorified secretary as the commercial accounts manager. I hated it towards the end, but I was lucky to have a job. So I started looking, and I ended up seeking a job at one of the local gun stores, and I got hired to cast bullets. And within a month, I was managing the place more or less. Like, why aren't we selling these things, and why aren't we doing that? And so I worked there while I was going through law school. I went as a night student, and when I get to my last year, I go, I kind of need an internship. Don't want to do. My dad and uncle were lawyers. They had a general practice. Knew I didn't want to do that. Knew I didn't want to be a litigator. Basically, like, all these things I knew I didn't want to do. And I went to law school because I didn't really have a plan in life. So I figured I could put off being an adult for a little longer and accrue a lot of debt in the process. And
That's a way different plan about putting off being an adult than what I did.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'd recommend it, but it's worked out for me, oddly enough. But I was also active on a Pennsylvania gun forum, and I kept seeing this one lawyer's name repeatedly mentioned. So I looked him up. He was about an hour away, and I sent an email saying, "Hey, I'm going into my last year. I need an internship. Do you have anything to offer? And I'm interested in guns." So I was able to finagle my way into an internship, and that's where I ended up working for 5 years after I graduated and passed the bar exam. And the firm was built on Social Security, disability, and work comp, but my boss, Josh Prince, had carved out a niche area in the firearms law, doing stuff here in Pennsylvania. And his dad apparently told him the same thing my dad told me. Like, that's nice, you can do that for fun, but like you're going to need to do something else to earn a living. And so I worked there, and during that time, litigated, which is something I never wanted to do, but we litigated challenges against ATF and the federal government for FFL revocations and Second Amendment as applied challenges for prohibited persons. Did a lot of gun trusts, advising people on whether they were prohibited, things like that, and ended up in 2019 moving over to the nonprofit world, where I'd worked as outside counsel, and we had filed the first bump stock case on behalf of this other organization. And from there, it kind of kept opening doors. I stayed there for 3 years, started as the director of legal strategy, left as the VP of programs, and when I left, I made 4 or 5 phone calls, and it was just, hey, it's been nice working with you. Hope we can do it again in the future. I'm no longer at my job, and I went away backpacking. And while I was gone, Alan called me, texted me, and emailed me, the founder of the Second Amendment Foundation, and came back, and we started talking, and I ended up here as the executive director. So not bad for no plan or no ambition of wanting to do this.
Yeah, it's like serendipitying your way through life.
It's I talked, so it's fun over the years, and I guess the part I also left out was the YouTube stuff. So when I was at the law firm, I saw a lot of YouTubers putting out bad information that just wasn't correct, and I think I ranted about it on Facebook, and John saw that and called me and said, "Hey, I got an idea." So between the two of us, we concocted the legal brief, and we had the first episode filmed in the pilot filmed in a week after that conversation, and that went for, I think, over 100 episodes. One of the greatest things about that was I got to teach people. The best compliment I ever got from anybody was, "Hey, I learned something, and thank you." Like that was helpful. And now there's a lot of people doing it, which I think is great, because the gun community is not only more informed but correctly informed, which I think is extremely important. So, yeah,
No,
that
really is. I was
going to say, just to put a point on it. I say dumb luck, but I think really it's just been people opening doors and me being curious enough to see what's on the other side. And whenever I talk to law students or college students who ask me like, "Hey, how do I do what you do?" That's the story they get. There was no plan. It just happened.
Oh, it falls into that do what you want or do what you love and you don't have to work, but you have to have something adjacent to that until you get there. And that seems like you took something you had gone to school for and something you love and found a way to put them together, and now you're a voice for the masses that are censored and hushed all over the country.
Yeah, AR Drew in the comments over here for the audio listeners later says he went to law school because he liked Grisham novels. And he also says that dumb luck is better than good plans. And I can attest to that myself. But no, that has been the most fulfilling part of my life, as well as doing the training and teaching people, because so many people for so long, and you still have it, not as much with people like immersed in the industry as it is with the people on the periphery that have my brother-in-law is a cop and he said this.
Worst place.
Oh no. And Adam had some technical difficulties, but he'll be right back. So as we go through here and wait, I'm sure he's going. Yeah. Hey, welcome back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that.
I think the cops heard you were about to start trashing them and cut.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say it's the worst place to get any kind of like actual advice, especially what the law is.
People that think cops are legal advice, no, they're just, I follow this statute, and then it has to go into, I mean, they can't even really press charges. That comes down to the state's attorneys and stuff like that. They're just like, I present this evidence to somebody who makes the actual arbitrary decision. And most of them have,
in my, for lack of a better term, civilian jobs, I, with the training company, I hear, I am well versed in South Dakota's self-defense laws and stuff like that, because it's a very, very small, minute speck of law. And I can say that I have a lot of conversation with sheriffs that they don't know the full scope of it, because unless they're, following legislature every year, they don't know what the law is. Then the other part of it is, dealing with roads and right of ways. I have to follow all that laws as well. And the number of people who don't have any idea what that stuff is, you drive on it every day and no one has any idea. Oh yeah, well, actually the right of way goes this far, depending upon what type of road it is, but that's all super boring stuff that nobody cares about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is one of the, again, misconceptions is like, oh yeah, I heard it from my brother-in-law because he's a cop and he knows this stuff. Though that's not a good place to start.
Or he was probably telling you something so you didn't get yourself shot.
If you took Joe Biden's advice, just blast 2 shots off the back deck, you'd all be in jail.
Get a shotgun.
Well, I'm all for
they're
that.
coming through. I got a cannon pointing at my front door, so I just pull a little lever. I don't know who's out there.
Yeah, it's but no, and that's one where I will say that bad advice has done more harm than ignorance has a lot of times.
Yeah,
for a lot of people.
I think I would agree.
Touch on, like you said, when you guys were doing the legal brief and you had people like, hey, I learned this or I learned that. Anytime, whether it's like if I'm at guards teaching a class, or when Nick and I did a carbine class a couple weeks ago, and one of our best friends who was only served with us for years, 15, 20 years, and he's like, I learned something. Like we were, just, and it was simple as that quick draw sling. And he's like, I could not figure out how it worked. He's like, I knew to have a 2-point sling. I knew what it did. I did not understand that till I watched you draw and do that. And I'm like, well, that's why you're here. Like, yeah. I always tell people, especially when we're doing briefs, is never ask, does everybody understand this? Because I guarantee you there's some new kid that's too afraid to raise their hand, or there's everybody thinks they know what they're doing, and they have the wrong idea. They have the wrong perception of it. So teach it sure you deal with that all the time. It's like, no, let's talk about it. Because somebody says, no, but I thought it was this way, or I thought, this or that. It's like, it was at one time, or, stuff like that. So yeah, it's always great when you can have people say, thank you. I learned something from your class or what you're putting out there. So,
well, that's because most of the time people think they, like have a good concept or have a grip around this, but what they really need is a VZ grip. And the unique features of VZ AR grips is they're machined from a solid block of G10, and G10 is great because it's durable and doesn't get slippery when covered with mud, blood, or sweat. 17-degree grip angle and wide variety of textures from mild to extreme, as well as color options and shorty versions are also available. 1911 grips with extreme customizability, standard slim palm swells, some notches, safety cuts, bottom profiles, and more. More than 25 textures and 27 colors are available. This coupon code is good for 15% off all handgun and rifle grips, and that code is AR-15 podcast.
That was a slick segue there. I gotta hand it to you. It's like you've done that once or twice.
Yeah, that's kind of become my shtick, is the fast segue.
Mm-hmm. Nicely done.
But no, but it really is important, I think, to get the information out. And that's why I always tell everyone I have a training company, not because I do it to make money, which is helpful and nice, but I do it because I think people need that information more.
Yeah, no, most certainly. You don't know what you don't know. And what I found in my time in this community is, my first AR-15, I had a bunch of stuff hanging off it because the internet told me I needed to. And I took one carbine class. That gun became so much slicker. And all my rifles are pretty much all set up the same way. They have an optic, they have a white light. They may or may not have, lamb on it. And it's got a foregrip and a silencer. That's about it. And a sling, obviously. But I mean, all the stuff that the internet tells you, it was definitely a learning experience, and you find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And sometimes you get to play with other people's stuff and, to add something else to the pot to think about is like, hey, can I incorporate this or use it on a different setup or something like that?
Yeah, that is definitely a thing. And I see that in the chat over here, they're talking about, looks like 2A Bourbon might be able to serve drinks at goals this year. So everybody will get to have some.
Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, that's going to be a terrible idea. Well, or a great idea. It depends. It could be a great fundraising opportunity. But
and I see that the special release with Smith and Wesson. Yeah, so one of the ideas, just to hit on 2A bourbon for another moment, was special bottle toppers with various companies like collectibles, kind of like how Blanton's has the various horses and stuff. Yeah,
that's one thing. Bourbon, there's a few of them that have some pretty cool toppers, so you can kind of make, instead of just throwing it away, you got that keepsake. Kind of like I know guys that collect the rings off cigars every time they smoke a different one. So it's like stamp collecting and
just stuff that your kids are going to have to deal with when you turn over.
That's what I was like. Why did Dad have all these corks?
Because he was an alcoholic. Because you came along.
So we've learned a little bit about you. Why don't we talk about Second Amendment Foundation?
Sure.
Now, Second Amendment Foundation is a great organization, and they've been around for a while, and they're one that's committed to doing good work.
Well, I'd like to believe that's the case, and certainly we strive for that. But yes, the organization has been around since 1974. It actually predates ILA, and the organization was originally created to elevate a case to the Supreme Court. So when Alan started it, that was his goal. In the early years, I'll give you the quick history. The quick history is the early years were spent in a lot of scholarly pursuits. So at the time, you had this debate going on about whether the Second Amendment was an individual right or whether it was a collective right. And so a lot of the organization spent its time working with scholars and lawyers to get things published in law reviews and do the research that would be necessary to lay the foundation to solidify the argument and understanding that it is in fact an individual right. That included publication, not just in scholarly things, but just for information for people as well to better inform the public. You get the Legal Scholars Conference in the 70s. The 80s roll around, you get Gun Rights Policy Conference, which still goes on. This year's our 40th annual one, and that'll be in Salt Lake at the end of September. And that's a gathering of, attorneys, scholars, activists, people who are interested, where you get to kind of hear from the people leading the Second Amendment fight, if you will, especially in the court system, but also some of the, legal legislative side as well. The 80s, you get the first two lawsuits from the organization, which is what we're most known for, our legal work. And the lawsuits were against then Mayor Dianne Feinstein's total handgun ban, which we won. And then there was a second suit in Connecticut dealing with the same thing. 90s, a lot more on the education side. There's a couple of lawsuits, but really the world kind of began with Heller in 2008 as far as the legal work. That's when the floodgates really opened. So you get Heller decided that same day, we walk into federal court and file a lawsuit against the city of Chicago, known as McDonald versus City of Chicago, which ultimately became the second major Supreme Court decision. And over the years, we've had a number of precedent-setting cases in the circuit courts on a variety of issues: prohibited persons, no ranges in the city of Chicago itself, things like that. And the organization has tackled everything from whether a green card holder can get a carry permit to the prohibited persons issue to what our current portfolio is, including assault weapons bans, magazine capacity challenges, 18 to 20 is a real big one, advertising, public housing restrictions. So kind of the whole gamut, the very big, I hate using this phrase, but sexy items that everybody cares about, to the more nuanced stuff that doesn't maybe affect as many people or a very small amount of people, but still implicates the right to keep and bear arms. So to that end, since our inception, we've been involved in over 260 lawsuits, either where we filed them, we funded them, or we filed an amicus brief in someone else's. We have over 55 active lawsuits today, right now, going on. So we're very busy in that regard. We're going to continue to be busy in that regard. And we still have a lot in our pipeline that we want to do.
Yeah, I know that just looking at the website, you can click through and see there's 6 pages of lawsuits going on right now. So
yeah,
that is a
two two that are going to be imminently filed here, hopefully in the next week or two, and then another one that's hopefully not much further out from that. So I guess the last thing I'd pitch on the organization is it's a 501c3. So unlike all the other gun groups that you're probably familiar with, it's a tax deductible donation, and over 80% of every dollar given goes directly to the mission itself.
Yep. I know that AR Drew in the chat and then up on screen has put the how to join link in. We put that on screen so everybody can see it. That's saf.org/join-saf. And I've been a member for a long time just because of the good work you guys are doing. And I would encourage everyone else to join and donate if you can.
We would certainly appreciate it.
No, it's so like you said, there's a handful of court cases, and we've come to a point now where a lot of gun rights people are more knowledgeable about litigation than ever before.
Oh yeah.
Because like as 15 years ago, my buddies that knew me would have never thought I would be sitting around quoting, like legal precedents and naming, court cases chapter and verse to describe why something is, constitutional or unconstitutional. Be like, well, yeah, because if you go back to this and if you go back to the Miller decision, it has to do. But, explaining some of that stuff where you educate yourself because of your passions. And unfortunately, because the Second Amendment is always under attack, we have to learn the legal side of it as much as the using side of it.
Yeah, and that's where everybody's found success in the last decade or so. The legislatures have become either very red, very blue. There's not many that are kind of going either way. So it's almost a foregone conclusion in a lot of states that if a pro-gun bill is being introduced, it's either going to pass or it's not. And same with an anti-gun bill. It's either like definitely going to happen or there's not a chance that it's going to see the light of day. So the community has figured out that if you want to make advancements in the restoration of the right, it's going to come from the courts. And we're fortunate that we have a Supreme Court that has a pretty good understanding of the right. And if you look at how the Supreme Court has decided these things, and I think that's important for two reasons. One, specifically because you get McDonald in 2010, it takes the Supreme Court 12 years to give you Bruin. And in that interim time, the lower courts all decided, well, we're just going to come up with a test that you didn't really articulate at all in Heller, but we're going to do it anyway. And for 12 years, the lower courts just kind of did whatever they wanted. And that resulted in a lot of bad case law coming out of it because they would imply intermediate scrutiny, which is the middle tiered scrutiny if you're counting the three main ones, and almost always found for the government on that ground. So, you get Bruin, and Bruin says, no, the test is what we said it was, but here it is again, in case you can't read. And they actually said it twice in the opinion, I think, to really reinforce it. But you get Heller, which says individual right, untethered to militia service, right to keep arms in the home. It does talk about bear as well. And I think it's pretty clear that it also says you do have a right to carry arms for confrontation in public. But apparently some people didn't get that memo. You get McDonald in 2010, applies the Heller decision to the states. You got to remember Heller was against the District of Columbia, and that's a federal enclave. So now it's applicable. All these lawsuits can be filed against states and local municipalities successfully after McDonald. So that case really opened the floodgates to a ton of litigation. You get Catano, stun guns are protected arms. And then you get Bruin. It says, here's the test, again, dummies. And there is a right to bear arms outside the home. And then after that, you get Rahimi, which I think the Supreme Court's hand was kind of forced on based on that Fifth Circuit decision of, that it was unconstitutional to prohibit him from keeping a firearm. So if you look at how the Supreme Court has gone through things and the development of any area of law, whether it's First Amendment or otherwise, it's always baby steps. When you look at particularly the First Amendment, you're looking at over 100 years worth of lawsuits and case law coming out of the Supreme Court to really kind of tell everyone what is protected by the First Amendment. We're at the infancy still in the Second Amendment realm, really. And that's crazy in a lot of ways for me to think that, that I'm involved in helping facilitate, hopefully, the restoration and protection of the Second Amendment for generations to come. Um, so the point of that wasn't really for me, but more so if you look at what they've decided so far, the next question is, well, like, why aren't they taking this case or that case? Well, I think logically, when I look at it, I think the next case they're going to take is either going to be something dealing with AR-15s and magazine bans, because it's talking about the types of arms that are protected, which they haven't really weighed in on clearly anyway. For some people, it could be more on the carry issue, so the sensitive places issue that came up post Bruin, where Bruin says you have a right to bear arms outside the home, and New York said, "Cool, hold my beer." Everything's a sensitive place. The 18 to 20 issue is another one where there's now a lot of restrictions on adults there that the court could tackle as well. So I think there's some still bigger topical issues before it'll get narrowed down into some of these more nuanced things. And that's just we're just gonna have to see what the court's gonna do, because if I had a crystal ball that would predict that, I'd probably go play the lottery.
Yes, that would be that's a great thing. Klecker Tactical here says we will have our new SAF donate button back on our site again. So if you're in need of a reliable custom Kydex holster, Klecker Tactical is your one-stop shop. Using premium USA source materials, Klecker Tactical will build you a holster in a variety of styles and colors, along with light and laser options. Whether you're in law enforcement, a competitive shooter, or an everyday gun enthusiast, trust that Klecker Tactical will provide every firearm owner has access to top-tier and personalized holsters, as well as quality custom products you can't find anywhere else. Use code AR-15 podcast for 10% off at KleckerTactical.com, and you can donate to the SAF.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
But no, when you talk about that, the number of people who don't understand some of those things, again, when you talk about like you don't know what you don't know, when I came home, so when I went to Iraq way back in the day, I came home on leave, and I was 20 when I came home on leave, and they just opened up the first Cabela's in South Dakota. And so this was back in, would have been 03, December of 03. And I came back and was like, oh, hey. And we swung through Cabela's, and I had a bunch of deployment money in my pocket. And I was like, yeah, I was home on leave. I was there with my mom, and she picked me up at the airport, and I tried to buy my first handgun. I say tried, because even though South Dakota gave me a concealed carry permit at 18, and I had literally turned in a Beretta to, I was like, oh yeah, hey, I'm not going to be on the road. I don't need this. Turn it over to the gun truck crew. And then went back, and I flew home on leave and was like, yeah, I just turned in my guns in Iraq, and I went to buy one. And the guy went through and ran it, and he goes, yeah, I can't sell you this gun because you're not 21.
Yep.
And like, it was huh.
Great. Yeah, it defies logic. At 17, with your parents' permission, you can enlist and join the military, and then the military entrusts you with machine guns, grenades, grenade launchers, things like that. And, we have two challenge. Well, we had two. There's one that's still live. Challenges to that federal handgun ban. One that came out of Louisiana, where the district court said, no, it's constitutional. The Fifth Circuit reversed it, said it was not, and the government did not seek cert at the Supreme Court. That their deadline to do that was within the last 2 weeks. And then we have another case on the same thing. When I was between jobs, Alan asked if I would litigate this case. So we won in the district court in West Virginia. It went up to the Fourth Circuit, where we lost, and I knew we were gonna lose that because it's a terrible circuit to be in, and we're in the process of getting together a cert petition to take that to the Supreme Court. So hopefully they might consider addressing that issue. But it's just insane that 18-year-olds can't buy it from a dealer, yet at the same time almost every state, well, not every, the majority of states allow 18-year-olds to possess handguns and even carry them and use them. But the they're kind of limited in how they can acquire them if you can't go buy a new one from a dealer.
Yeah. It's always been one of the kind of weird things of like, yeah, you can do all this stuff because you're an adult, but you're not.
Except this and that.
There's 2 things you can't do. Well, now 3 kind of.
Yeah.
But
what do you think, or how do you feel about right now? The Supreme Court's been very hesitant to take any 2A cases. Do you think are they waiting for the right one? Are they just in some of the ones that they haven't taken? Like, what's your outlook on that?
Yeah, so I'll try to give you some context, but I don't have the answer for you. So typically
That's
the
fair.
Supreme Court only takes cases that are of either like extreme importance that it has to be decided right now, and really like there's a clock ticking, and you can define extreme importance however you want. We're not all going to agree on what that looks like. The other reason is because circuit splits. So with the circuit courts, the intermediate appellate courts, when they start rendering different decisions, like the example I just gave, Fifth Circuit said this law is unconstitutional, and the Fourth Circuit said, well, it's perfectly constitutional. So now you have the same law being applied differently in 2 areas of the country. So if you happen to live in where the states the Fifth Circuit covers, you might be able to walk into a dealer and buy a handgun, but you live where the Fourth Circuit is and you're 18 to 20, like no dice. Or the rest of the country for that matter. So typically it'll look for circuit splits. And I think the other example that I'd bring up is Snope, our challenge to Maryland's assault weapons ban. So that one I thought was in a very good position. It had gone up to the Supreme Court while Bruin was being decided. They decide Bruin, they granted the cert petition, they vacated the Fourth Circuit's opinion, and they sent it back down for the Fourth Circuit to do over in light of what Bruin said. Fourth Circuit, it gets briefed, it gets argued, and the Fourth Circuit in front of a panel, and the Fourth Circuit says, we're going to do this en banc, which means as a whole. So the other piece of information that might be helpful for listeners is that the intermediate appellate courts, typically when a case goes there, it's usually first heard by a 3-judge panel. Occasionally it goes en banc immediately, but that's really rare. So en banc means the court as a whole, and the en banc court can either overrule a panel decision or affirm and say, like, yes, it was correct. And usually a party petitions for the court to sit that way. In this instance, the Fourth Circuit on its own just said, we're going to do this en banc. And so they did that and came out with a bad decision there. And I don't know where I was going with my thought. I completely lost my train of thought there, so you'll have to pardon me on that. The Supreme Court and why it picks cases like that. So that would give you a circuit split. That was what my point was, and that might be attractive to the Supreme Court. With the Snope decision, you get 3 judges. You get Thomas, Gorsuch, and Alito, who said they would have granted cert. You need 4 for the court to grant cert. You get Kavanaugh's statement respecting the denial, saying that essentially, I'm not sure the Fourth Circuit got it right, but I want the other lower courts to have more time to kind of weigh in. And I expect and that he thinks the court should address it, and that he expected within the next term or 2, they would in fact take one of these cases. So if you're counting votes, you have 3. You don't know about Roberts or Amy Coney Barrett, but you have 3 of the conservative justices, and you have Kavanaugh, who could have been that 4th vote, saying, I want this to go a little longer with the lower courts. So we'll see what happens. The good news is we have 7 other assault weapons ban challenges, and the one that I think might be attractive to them as well would be the one that's up in Illinois. That one has a trial record behind it. It's been briefed in front of the 7th Circuit. I don't think it's been argued yet, but that would, time frame wise, unless they really sit on making a decision, that would make it to the Supreme Court in the next term or 2 for them to consider taking.
Okay. And, when you go through this, I know that a lot of people read this, and one of the things that I know when I read it, I think the response when it was like, oh yeah, well, they got it wrong, was when they, one of the things he said that kind of bothered me personally was the mention of political capital. And I went, you're a court, political capital shouldn't be a thing. Like it should be about the Constitution. But
Yeah, I mean that's the whole idea. That's the theory behind a lifetime
Well,
appointment, is that you're
that
insulated from
seems to
those.
be the difference, though, depending on, I mean, what side of the line you fall. Whether it's if you're looking at things like you should, is it part of the law, or looking at things from the other side where they're looking at it with feelings and not how it's wrote in the Constitution. And it's unfortunate that we have judges that aren't actually constitutional. They don't look at what the law is. They're actually playing the political game with really nothing to gain at this point. You've never seen a Supreme Court justice do anything other than that after they've been there. Like, they're not going to run. They're not going to step down and run for Congress or run for presidency. So their capital really shouldn't exist.
it's much like Adam said, it's a lifetime appointment. So you're there till you choose to retire. And at that point, you're generally decrepit or dead. And at least that's what I've seen. That might not be the right way to put it. Clicker in the comments says, if you're old enough to vote, you should be old enough to do just about anything. Smoke, drink, buy a gun, not necessarily in that order.
Well, the other one is, and we brought it up on our last week's show after the Big Beautiful Bill with the tax being gone away. And I questioned it, not so much as do we, like everybody's like, yeah, we're going to get the lawsuits there. They could take time. Is there a way that they could look at it? It just like they revisit all those past ones now, like they did with Roe versus Wade, and just be like, because of what we wrote in the previous, briefs, where we said it's a tax, not a registry, and now we don't have the tax, so it's a registry. Even without you guys getting it there, could they just decide to look at it?
It needs a law. It needs somebody to bring a suit. So we'll actually be filing ours here shortly on that exact thing. But yeah, it's going to require somebody to sue in order for that. The court on its own isn't just going to identify things and say we should take a look at this.
So somebody actually took Roe versus Wade back up to them, or did they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was a lawsuit. So the other thing is, when you're talking about precedent, it's fairly uncommon for courts, and particularly the Supreme Court, to overrule a prior decision. It's this idea of kind of keeping an equilibrium, unless it's incredibly wrong. And you can look throughout our country's history to identify instances where there was institutional racism in the government at all the levels, where people did not have equal rights and weren't treated. And there were court decisions saying that certain subsets of people didn't have rights, and eventually, as society, like, actually these are in fact everybody's a person, and they do have rights. Those got overturned over time. But it's not if a court were to do that frequently, that would obviously cause all kinds of problems within the law, because it would be constantly evolving.
Just depending on which way they swing to the minorities is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you said there's lawsuits, for lack of a better term, there's lawsuits that are printed, and I know that with like the Heller case, he kind of voluntarily got arrested. If my recollection of the Heller case was correct. It's a doctor who became a lawyer and said, all right, I'm going to get arrested so I can fight this or help fight it.
So not quite with so the Heller's is an interesting one, because there was actually a number of plaintiffs, and I think, if I recall correctly, I think it was originally Parker was the lead plaintiff in that lawsuit. And so they had all applied for, or they all wanted to be able to register handguns in the District of Columbia, and you couldn't do it. There was no mechanism to do it, but the law required it in order for you to have one. So against the advice of his attorney, he went and did the thing. And that's why he had standing, and he ended up being the only one who had standing. And standing is a concept that you need an injury in order to be able to bring the lawsuit. So he by actually not listening to his lawyer on that. He was actually the reason that I was able to continue moving forward. But I think you're kind of talking about manufacturing, lawsuits to a degree, and when you work in the nonprofit world, you're always looking for, if you have a concept, somebody who fits the concept or the mold. So you're looking for, in the case of the 18 to 20 purchase thing, like if we had just sat down and said we want to bring a lawsuit doing this, well, then we'd have to go find an 18 to 20 year old who wanted to buy a handgun from an FFL, and obviously they can't. So things like that. So when I talk about the kind of legal work we do, I usually describe it as three different buckets for people. There's the strategic legal work, which is where we look at the law, how it sits today, and how we want to hopefully shape it for the better for tomorrow. So we figure out what it is where we think we can make some movement, and then who we would need in order to do that. And then we go and find those people and bring that lawsuit. We have what I call opportunistic litigation, which is where somebody contacts us, the organization, and says, hey, I've got this problem. And because we basically work as a public interest law firm in a lot of ways, we evaluate their case. And if there is a case to bring and there's a public benefit, meaning that it extends beyond that person. So like, we're not going to necessarily be somebody's criminal defense lawyer unless there's a public benefit to doing it. But you did something stupid, got arrested. We're probably not the right fit. But if there's a broader implication that could affect many people, whether it's criminal or otherwise, that's something we might pick up and then file a lawsuit over. And then the last is what I call kind of reactive litigation. So using Bruin as the example, you get Bruin, then New York, California, New Jersey, Maryland, they all go, cool, here's all the sensitive places now, where we're kind of forced to bring a lawsuit that we wouldn't have otherwise brought, but based on the government changing the law and we believing it infringes on the right.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have said like trying to manufacture lawsuits. It's just, I know that there have been cases
do
where
it.
It's a
I remember that was a big discussion when I was in high school with the Jack Kevorkian, the
assisted suicide,
medical assisted suicides. Like, he has to do it to get arrested and then be found guilty so he can keep appealing it to the top level to find out, what should be. And it's not necessarily manufacturing it, but you have to, well, we can't say that's stupid, but if it's not affecting anybody, they can't do anything. You have to have that effect. So
with constitutional rights, the interesting thing is, you don't necessarily have to get arrested in order to bring the lawsuit. The courts have come up with this idea of pre-enforcement challenges. So essentially you can say like, hey, I would engage in this conduct, but for the law and the criminal penalties associated with it, and bring a lawsuit based on that, which is how a lot of our lawsuits are characterized. Using the assault weapons bans as an example, like, hey, I would go buy and possess and use this gun, but for, the fact that I'd be sitting in a 10 by 10 cell for the next 20 years and be fined $250,000 or whatever the penalty is.
Yeah. And, I know that, like, as we look forward here, we talked about it, and, as lawsuits go forward and stuff like that, would that mean that any lawsuits will have to wait to be filed until on this current NFA rulings with the tax being gone? Does that mean that we have to wait until there's actually a grievance, for lack of a better term?
No. So there's already one lawsuit filed, and we'll be filing ours here in hopefully the next week. So
yeah. So how does that work then? Because I know you can't petition directly to the Supreme Court, but can you file that as a federal?
Well, so yeah, most of our cases, there's like maybe 5 or 6 that are in various state courts, but almost all of our work is done in federal court. So what we do is we'd pick the circuit we want to be in. And then in particular, then we'd look at the district courts or the trial courts. So we'd see all the states that are in the circuit. Then we'd look at the states that are in the circuit and the trial courts there. And then everybody does this, so I don't feel ashamed saying it out loud. Then you start looking at judges, and you try to figure out, based on the trial courts, there's different districts. So some states, like Pennsylvania, as an example, there's the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, Middle District, and the Western District. So there's 3 different trial courts for the federal bench in Pennsylvania. So then you look at the districts, and then sometimes those even get subdivided into various divisions within. So you have a big picture look, and then you scale down to where you want to go or try to be, because you think you're going to get hopefully a judge that'll be more favorable than like an Obama appointee or a Biden appointee. And that's not always, they do horse trading in the Senate. So sometimes a Biden appointee might not be super liberal. And, same with a Republican appointee for that matter. It might not be a super conservative judge either, but
They're
that's
not all Bonitas.
Right. Yeah, they're not all Bonitas. So, once you pick where you want to go, you find the people that are in that area, and then you file your lawsuit, and it goes through the trial court, and then it'll go up to whatever the circuit court is, and then in theory maybe on to SCOTUS from there, or at least a cert petition. If we lose a cert petition, if the government loses and it's this administration, I have no idea whether they're going to ask the Supreme Court to hear it or just take the L and be okay.
So in an event like that, where let's say the government takes an L on, again, I'm just going to use this current NFA stuff because that's top of mind for everyone.
Sure.
Would the, like, hey, the government takes the L in a circuit, that does not actually mandate that, yep, now it is a registration, so I guess the NFA has gone across the country.
Yeah, from a practical standpoint, I'm not sure how the government would deal with this, but from a academic standpoint, I'll tell you. So the Supreme Court has shown its disdain for nationwide injunctions, meaning that you bring a lawsuit that, let's just say it's in the Ninth Circuit and you're coming out of California, that they issue a nationwide injunction against whatever it is, whether it's a constitutional issue or otherwise. The Supreme Court has really shown a disdain for that, and recently issued an opinion basically saying like we're not okay with nationwide injunctions. So the way that relief has been requested a lot of times, and much to the chagrin of people out there because they think groups are making a money grab, is that the scope of relief you're asking for is essentially limited to the named parties in the lawsuit. So whoever the individual plaintiffs are, and if there's institutional or membership organizations, those organizations, as well as their members. So the example I'll use for this is when the prior administration created its arm brace rule, when ATF came out with that. Yep. And before they actually went to rulemaking, and they just said, hey, here's the form, this is what we're going to do, we actually sued them. And then they went into rulemaking, and then they came out with that rule, and we amended our lawsuit. But we ended up getting an injunction. The injunction scope was limited to our named plaintiffs, staff, and our members. So if you were a staff member, the government couldn't enforce that against you. And this was a preliminary injunction, not a permanent one, meaning at the beginning of things. So that's kind of how things are shaping up on that front. And ultimately, if that were the case, if you joined a membership organization that had secured an injunction for itself and its members, you'd be protected by it. Now, how the government would actually deal with, people providing proof that you're a member and making sure you didn't have to go through the process, I have no idea, but that's not for me to figure out, fortunately.
Yeah. That is, I know that when we went through that, it's like I said, I was a member, so I was like, hey, sweet, I get to have an arm brace. And then you start to get into the, free men don't ask permission type thing. And I understand all of that, and that sounds really good on the internet, but for everyone else who's like, lives on planet Earth,
it's only illegal if you get caught. But here's the penalties, and you're an adult, so you get to make your own decisions.
Well, exactly. Not even then. It's also how much money do you have?
Yeah.
Where do you work and live? As we found out this week, certain things don't exist. So.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what you're talking about. But I've never seen a list. But no, that's where we go through, and I think it's not that I'm trying to like goad people into joining this because as Dusky's saying in the comments, it's all about the money, and it is. But part of that is I'm going to say, give money to the people who are actually fighting the good fight for us. And this isn't just trying to be a fundraising drive because Adam didn't know that I was going to be like advocating for everyone to go through and join the Second Amendment Foundation when he came on. But I figured he weren't going to be combative. But
no, I'm not going to be combative. But
Yeah.
I'll give
Yeah.
the pitch I give everybody is
so
that
there's a lot of people in the 2A community, just like the people that are not in the 2A community, that really only know that the NRA exists for fundraising and lobbying. They don't know about FPC. They don't know about goals. They don't know about you guys because the media and the other side isn't attacking you all the time. Mm-hmm. So the only way you get your names out, and I have said it on this show, the day that Feinstein or any of them stand on that podium on Capitol Hill and start saying those groups' names is when we know the fight has come home. And until then, yeah, it's nice to have you guys kind of flying under that radar, but you also need the money. And lawyers aren't free.
Yeah, no, it's not an inexpensive endeavor, and I'll give the same pitch I give everybody is that, like, go if you're unfamiliar with us, go check out our website, go look at our work, check out our social media, and if you like what you see, consider joining and consider donating. And if you don't, hopefully we'll get there one day. I don't know what to tell you otherwise.
No, that's a great way to put it, and I know that again, I'm a member, and I'm proud to be a member, and that's not going to change. And I will say, people should be joining these because it's, I have no problem being a member of more than one organization because it takes, a lot of us fighting this fight to get our rights that were stripped away back. And we have to do it like baby steps at a time. I know a lot of people were disappointed. Things didn't go the way everyone hoped they would with the pie in the sky dreams on the big beautiful bill, but I was not shocked.
It's crazy how many people, like the first term and currently they're playing 5D chess, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden this didn't go through the way they wanted it. But somebody at the time said, "What if we just get rid of this?" Which opens up the new lawsuit. It's almost like they knew what they could get away with and what they couldn't get away with, so they set up the big one. And then, okay, so here's your concession, but that opens the door to do more. I mean, everybody wants to say there's this big game of chess going on, but they don't want to say it right now. And I'll say the reason we fight for every little thing, I never cared about pistol braces. I never cared about bump stocks. I fought for them because I knew that if they take them, they start taking different triggers. They start taking optics that are certain power. Like, it's that small thing. But we're gonna cry when we don't get one little win. We can't start chipping away. Like, that's what I think.
But we did.
Yeah,
and
we got to win.
That's the part that you was it the win that everybody wants, and did it deal with the most inconvenient part of the NFA? No, I'll readily admit that. Of course not. $200 is $200, and $5 is $5, and to some people $200 might be a significant amount, and other people like it's pocket change. But the registration aspect of it is the part that is the most annoying part, mm-hmm. and the part that delays everything. But you did get a win, because since 1934 all they've ever done is add to it, never take anything out of it.
Yeah.
And so when you have people saying that, it's not a win, and then that there's some conspiracy to somehow take it away, and that groups were working with the Congress to not make it a reality, is absolutely asinine. And on top of that, I think there was a pretty bad job of managing people's realistic expectations on it. When it was just the HPA, I think if it had been the HPA, it probably might have made it through, maybe. And then you get all these other things added in, and you got to remember a couple of things. You're dealing with politicians, so they got to go back to their constituencies and get reelected. And you also have to remember, like, guns isn't a priority for almost all of them. It's certainly not a priority for the administration when you're talking about immigration, the economy, and foreign policy. It's not high up on the list. So, I don't think there was some grand conspiracy. I wasn't on Capitol Hill. We don't lobby directly. We supported the initiative in the sense of like, hey, this would be great. And then when other things got added in, like, hey, this would be awesome. But realistically, I think if you had your heart set on politicians doing something for your benefit to that degree, I think you're sorely
most people
misplaced.
aren't single issue voters. Like
But
realistically, they're not.
I think what hurt most people is we got that close with that much. It's like when your favorite team misses the field goal to lose field goal to lose a Super Bowl because they've never done it. Like we've been that close. We've never been there before and then got let down. But you took away the $200 stamp. Well, I've always had to figure $200 in when I wanted to buy a can.
Sure.
So we were at GunCon at the range day and they got that 22 can. That's $150. You get 3 shrouds for $150. Like, yeah, it cost me more to go through the stupid, the stamp now. Well, you get rid of that. That opens up that door for those companies and those like a 22 can is rarely over $200, even for really good ones. So now instead of doubling that price, that helps out those companies as well.
Yeah.
Yep. And sounds just like make you look cool and almost as cool as cool stickers do. And if you're in need of awesome stickers, you can check out Sticker Phantom, where you can get all kinds of base stickers like our based Bluey and our Steamboat Willie. Now, Sticker Phantom makes all of our stickers. Those stickers are not for sale on there, but they will make them and make cool stickers for you. And you can get yours made for 10% off with code AR-15 podcast. Yeah, I said segues were my shtick. So
everybody loves a good sticker too, and if they don't, there's probably
those
something wrong with
stickers.
them.
When we start handing out, when kids find out we have them,
these are like Joe walks around and talks to kids. Is like, hey, you want a sticker? And it's like, I wish this was a less creepy way to say this.
Well, most of them I checked with their parents first. I'm like, hey, give your kid a sticker. Like, they cool, and they're like, what?
Yeah,
but. No, it's it has been a thing. I like on a personal note, I would be happy to see a repeal of the Hughes Amendment, but that's a whole nother thing. But I see that face, just that
dude. Here's right. Congress can't agree what color the sky is, and that's a fairly not a divisive thing.
I don't know.
Right?
I've seen the sky like 4 different colors at one time.
Okay,
well,
but
it's blue because God loves the infantry.
It's not a divisive topic. You put machine guns in there, yeah. I wouldn't hold my breath.
Well aware. I'm well aware. I'm just going. Yeah. If I had, it's like, hey, like I'll still pay the tax stamp. Just give me transferable machine guns again.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be upset about it, but
then Form 1s would go through and.
And they would, and the price would go up so high on them, nobody would get them, so it wouldn't really even affect that much.
Well, the problem herein lies. The problem is there's an interesting scope of the law with that, because this is the only time I advocate for trust. A lot of times now for an NFA trust is buying things in trust as an investment with pre-tax dollars for retirement. Because so I ran this through a trust lawyer here in town for a bank, and it's like, hey, so if we did this, like, well, if you could legally do that, there's no reason you couldn't do it as an investment with pre-trust dollars. So I know a guy who's using pre-trust dollars from his ranch to purchase machine guns as an investment because he can show a positive increase every year.
Well, that's like I said,
and that's his retirement plan is buying Tommy guns.
When I asked,
not a very liquid retirement plan.
If they pass the HPA, if I could use my HSA account to buy silencers.
There you go.
Well, now we're getting into the weeds, and I know that it is starting to get late on your side of the coast there, Adam. So before we start signing off here, Adam, is there anything you want to add, or where can they find you? Where can they find out more about the Second Amendment Foundation and anything like that?
So Second Amendment Foundation, SAF.org. You can find us on Instagram, X, YouTube, Facebook, and something else that I'm probably forgetting. On X, it's at 2AFDN. Everything else is Second Amendment Foundation. Apparently, that was too long for X to handle. Go figure. And you can find me, bopping around from place to place. And you can, if you look real hard, you can probably find me on X and Instagram too. And it's not that hard. Just look for my name.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I know that we appreciated this. This was a super informative show. I know that the listeners loved it. Our chat was kind of unhinged tonight, but that was
cool.
like, hey, they come to watch the show and end up having to catch the audio later to get the recap, but that's fine.
Somebody was wrong. They need to know. I have to be the one who tells them.
But no, Joe, you got anything to add tonight before we
same as every week, go support these guys, support the people that are fighting for us, support the guys like us, the influencers out there. Go give them a follow, a like, and a share on their social media. We can't get the word out without doing it our way, and that's through that grassroots, and it's what we got to do.
And I'm going to say one last thing, guys. Make sure you check out Patriot Patch, patriotpatch.co. Join the Patch of the Month Club. Go through. You can get all sorts of cool patches like this subdued Patriot Patch I have on my microphone. I've got more of them laying around here somewhere.
I don't know where my Patch of the Month went. But don't try on me here.
Go from March down here. That is on their M-Lock patch rail, which is just
those patch rails are pretty nice.
But no, as we go through here, guys, go out, get involved. Everyone knows what I'm about to say next, and that is be prepared to self-rescue. You will be your own first responder. Go out, get training, get medical training. And you folks, stay safe and stay armed. And Adam, if you want to stay on, we can visit after the show. But all you folks out there, stay safe, stay armed. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening to the AR-15 podcast. Check us out on all our social media. AR-15 podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. AR-15 podcast 2.0 on Instagram. If you want to send us a question, rant, or suggestion, email us at AR-15podcast2.0@gmail.com. That's the number 2, period, the number 0. If you want to be part of the daily conversation, you can find us at Discord, AR-15 podcast. Don't forget to check out dangfree.net. Sign up is simple and free, and you can communicate with us, other podcasters, and you, the listeners. Lastly, check out all our sponsors: Patriot Patch Company, VZ Grips, Slacker Tactical, and Sticker Family.